Welcome back to the Jeremiah Show. My special guest today, Lee Ritenour, is here. He is, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, he's got a guitar in his hand and he has been strumming away throughout this interview. And I asked him off air why he does that, if he's writing a song and multitasking. Lee, do you find that it helps when you're moving your fingers and you're warming up, as you described? Does it help things flow like for you? Thoughts and ideas? Does that
Absolutely. Well, like sometimes when you're doing any kind of creative endeavor, or you're working on a software program or anything, sometimes when you're concentrating on it so much that you can't see so clearly. And sometimes when you are doing something else and you're doing two things at once, sometimes the the real magic will occur naturally, so
it flows from you?
excuse me. Yeah.
Okay, so we went to break with a beautiful composition of yours called For the Palms. Could you tell us a little bit about that story behind the
Well,
composition?
a very LA story. A lot of people do know that I had lost our house and my studio with about 100 guitars, and the whole house to the famous Woolsey fire in 2018. And so fortunately, we had insurance, good insurance, uh, and so we were in the process of rebuilding, which now, almost 6 years later, we're back in the house, and it's fantastic to be here. But during that time, even though we were in a rental house and we had all these beautiful palm trees that were part of the old house, and the day of the fire, NBC News, we left quite late, and I grabbed six or seven of the A guitars, and we were going down Pacific Coast Highway, and uh, NBC News, not knowing it was my house, it was just another house in Malibu burning, parked their vehicle and had somebody up on a ladder and filming, and they had catering, and one of our neighbors
Bizarre.
said they got so mad at them because here was this major fire going on, and
Right.
here's the NBC crew doing their thing, right? And so at any rate, the uh, we had all these palm trees, and they were, and it was on the news. Here's another house in Malibu burning. They nothing to do with Lee Ritenour, and there was all these big palm trees that were on fire, and they were swaying next to the house, right? And so uh, there was 26 of them, and they survived. I think all except three or four or something. And so once the we had to move them to the backyard once the 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 fire cleared, and we cleared all the, then we started to clear all the debris and everything. And so when we were rebuilding, we wanted to replant them in the original position, and now the new codes would not allow it, and so we had to get rid of the palm trees. And my wife loved the palm trees because of the obviously the meaning and the message that they were the survivors in the fire, and they were on the news swaying away, and you can still look up that clip, and and she and we went to the city, and we went to this and that, and they said, no, you have to get rid of the palm trees. And so I was we were at this rental house, and I was laying on a Chase lounge. It was a warm day in LA, and I was laying on a Chase lounge with a guitar on my lap, and my wife was crying the blues about the palm trees, and this song For the Palms came out almost in one breath. And as songwriters or anyone doing anything creative, most of the time, you tear apart a song, and you try this part and you try that part and you don't like that little part and you put this together, and you know it's like writing a book too. It's like you hate those 10 pages and you start over, and once in a while something comes out in one full sentence. And and we were talking, and I might have even been this Yamaha silent guitar, which you can't even hear hardly, and I wrote this whole song while laying down on my back, which I had never done before. And I checked it, and I said, well, this can't be right. There has to be something wrong with it. But it came out as one sentence. And every songwriter in the world will tell you, we love that when that happens, because it doesn't happen very often.
Do you question, or did you question why it came to you that way?
Well, you know, again, I was being slightly distracted by the conversation with my wife down at the other end of the deck, is sitting in another chair, and her complaining about the palm trees and sad and blah blah blah. And I was trying to, you know, talk to her a little bit, and then subconsciously this whole little piece came out. And so again, sometimes when we're concentrating on writing a song, uh, you know, we're dialed into it so hard, and we're using maybe music software like Logic Audio or Pro Tools or whatever you use, and you're dialed in that way, and great stuff can happen that way as well. But when something all of a sudden like a whole piece appears, uh, you and it doesn't happen very often, and almost every songwriter in the world will tell you that.
Mhm.
And whether you're writing jazz or Brazilian music or pop stuff or hip hop or rock or whatever the style, it doesn't matter. When it does happen, you kind of have to sit back and go, wow. And when it was done, and it only took a few minutes for it to appear, the whole song, and I kept checking it. I said, well, there must be something wrong with it. Let me see. You know, one of those kind of things, right? And sure enough, and it's the least Brazilian song on the record, by the way. It really is kind of a traditional jazz waltz, and but it did turn out nice and belonged on the record.
Let me ask about it turned out great. I love that song. Let me ask you about the album. It's heard one way, you know, the studio album. It's recorded and it's heard one way by a listener like myself, um, as a well-produced album. When you play live with the musicians and when you're on tour and you play this album live, does it change at all? Are there two albums almost when you record something, does it become two different albums, two different experiences, two different
Yeah,
ways
no,
of
no.
hearing?
Of course, you know, and I can say this historically too, because I've done so many albums and I have so many songs available and to play and perform. But when you play a song live with your band, and you know, it depends again on the style of music and the style of the artist. You know, some artists, the fans of that particular artist, especially pop artists, expect to hear the song exactly as it is on the record or on the radio, if you will. And there's a lot of pre-production and tracks going on, and sometimes the musicians on stage aren't even playing that much, you know. So there's that kind of experience. Then there's more of the jazz musicians where every time they play a song, they play it differently. I'm a little bit more in the middle, where you know, especially Grusin and I, we respect the form and the structure of the song that we composed, or whoever's song we're playing, whether it's a Milton Nascimento tune or a Lee Ritenour tune or a Dave Grusin tune, and yet it takes on a life of its own with the musicians on stage, so it evolves. So for the Palms is a very nice and relatively easy tune to play on the road, and it takes on more of a jazz style where we don't change it up radically. It sounds pretty much like the record, but it has its own environment and its own experience every time you play it live.
And I know you were just on tour. Are you on tour this summer? Can we
Yes,
jump in?
there's quite a bit of touring coming up. I'll be back east in Portsmouth and in New York for a couple of shows, but the primary bigger tour is in Europe in the summertime, and we'll be in Spain and Switzerland and London again and all over the place. And that's I think fairly updated on the website now. And then later on in the year, there's a huge tour being planned for Japan and Hong Kong and China, and that's in November. And we're bringing a lot of the Brazilian musicians that played on the record.
Incredible. I got to catch up with you somewhere along the way. We're going out right now with Vitor Riosa. I butchered that a little bit there, but anything you want to
Vitoriosa.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yvonne Lynn's tune. And again, this is an old song of Yvonne's, but we're so close to Yvonne, and he's such an incredible songwriter, and we wanted him on the record. And you know, there's whether it's Milton Nascimento or Caetano Veloso or João Bosco, or there's so many Brazilian musicians I love, and I could have collaborated with all of them on the record very easily. But Vitoriosa was a tune that I felt, because I was trying to also pick material that would reflect my guitar style and Dave's piano style. And Dave and I were picking these tunes together, of course. And so when we decided to do Vitoriosa and asked Yvonne to join us, then we also asked Tatiana, and she gave it the female color along with my guitar and Dave's piano and Yvonne's voice and Tatiana. So it's a nice combination.
Okay, here it is. Enjoy. My special guest today, Lee Ritenour. We'll be right back for our final segment.